"Hand over the company to me or beware," my son-in-law threatened, and I firmly replied, "No." The next day he brought me coffee to the office as a sign of reconciliation. My secretary accidentally bumped into me and whispered, "Don't drink it. Trust me." I secretly switched cups with my son-in-law. You won't believe what happened to him in 5 minutes. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening in the comments. The San Diego sunset painted my office windows gold, but I barely noticed. 40 years of building Harrison Pharmaceuticals had taught me to appreciate the small victories. A successful FDA approval, a contract renewal, another quarter in the black. At 67, I'd learned that empire building wasn't about grand gestures. It was about showing up, day after day, making the hard calls nobody else wanted to make. My daughter Sarah used to joke that I loved this company more than anything. 3 years since cancer took her, and I still reached for the phone sometimes to share good news before remembering she wouldn't answer. I was reviewing third-quarter projections when the office door crashed open. Francis, my son-in-law, stood in the doorway, his jaw set in that way that meant trouble. He'd been Sarah's husband for 6 years before she passed, and I'd kept him on as VP of Sales afterward. Partly out of loyalty to her memory, partly because he was actually decent at the job. "We need to talk, Quentin." He crossed the room in 3 aggressive strides. His tie was loosened, his usually perfect hair disheveled. I set down my pen with deliberate slowness. "My calendar says I'm free at 9 tomorrow morning." "This can't wait." Francis planted both hands on my desk, leaning forward until I could see the veins standing out on his neck. "I've given 8 years to this company. 8 years of my life, married to your daughter, working my way up from nothing. I deserve what's mine." The words hung in the air like smoke from a gun. I'd spent decades reading people across negotiation tables, and I recognized the glint in his eyes. This wasn't a request. It was a demand. "What exactly do you think is yours, Francis?" "This company." He gestured around the office. "I should be running it." "You're what, 67? How much longer are you going to keep pretending you're not ready to retire?" I felt my jaw tighten but kept my voice level. "The company goes to you under very specific conditions, as outlined in my will. You know this. We discussed it with my attorney when Sarah was still alive." "Yeah, when you become incapacitated or deceased." He practically spat the words. "That's lawyer speak for never, and we both know it. You'll die at this desk at 90, still clutching your precious company." "Perhaps, but it's my company to clutch. I built it from nothing in 1985. His face reddened. "I earned this. I stood by Sarah through everything. The chemo, the hospital stays, watching her fade away. I've put in the work here, learned every aspect of this business. I've generated millions in sales revenue for you." "Which I paid you handsomely for," I interrupted. $140,000 salary, quarterly bonuses averaging 30,000 stock options. You've been well compensated." "Compensated?" His laugh had a sharp edge. "You think a salary is enough? I was family, Quentin. I am family. This company should already be mine." I stood slowly, drawing myself to my full height. 40 years of boardroom battles had taught me the value of stillness, of measured responses when others were losing control. "Let me be very clear, Francis. Harrison Pharmaceuticals will pass to you according to the terms of my will, not one day before. If you find that arrangement unacceptable, perhaps it's time we discussed your continued employment here." The silence stretched between us like a drawn blade. Francis's face went through several expressions: shock, rage, calculation, then something that looked almost like panic. When he spoke again, his voice was dangerously soft. "You're making a mistake, old man. A serious mistake." "The only mistake I'm making is continuing this conversation." I moved toward the door, opening it with firmness that left no room for debate. "I think we're done here. I'll see you at the Monday morning meeting, provided you still work here." "You stubborn old fool!" Francis's control snapped. His face flushed crimson. 8 years. I gave up everything for this family, and you treat me like some entry-level employee? You think you can just dismiss me? Sarah would be ashamed of you." The mention of my daughter sent a flash of anger through me, but I held it in check. "Leave Sarah out of this. Go home, Francis. Cool off. Think about whether you really want to burn this bridge." He stalked toward the door. stopping so close I could smell the expensive cologne Sarah had always bought him. "You'll regret this, Quentin. Mark my words." "I regret many things, Francis. This conversation isn't one of them." He left without another word, his footsteps echoing down the hallway. But just before he disappeared around the corner, he glanced back. The fury in his face had transformed into something else, something colder, more calculated. His eyes held the kind of look I'd seen in rival CEOs, right before they tried to undercut a deal. Predatory intelligence, dangerous patience. I closed the door and returned to my desk, but the quarterly projections might as well have been written in Sanskrit. That look bothered me more than anything Francis had said. Francis angry was predictable. Francis calculating was something else entirely. I'd built a pharmaceutical company from nothing, survived 2 economic crashes, 3 FDA investigations, and 4 hostile takeover attempts. I knew danger when I saw it, and I'd just seen it walk out of my office. Sleep didn't come easy that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling fan's lazy rotation, replaying Francis's words. "You'll regret this." Standard tough guy posturing, the kind of empty threat angry people throw around. Except something about the way he'd said it, about that final calculating look, kept gnawing at me. At 2 in the morning, I gave up and moved to my home office with bourbon. The room still smelled faintly of Sarah's perfume, though logic said that was impossible after 3 years. I tried focusing on quarterly reports, but my mind kept drifting to other moments I'd dismissed at the time. Last week, Tuesday morning, reviewing medical insurance updates when Francis appeared with coffee. Friendly, casual Francis, who'd emerged after months of grief following Sarah's death. "Hey, Quentin, question about the executive health benefits. When was your last physical?" "October. Why?" "Just curious." He'd leaned against the doorframe, all easy smiles. "You take any regular medications? Heart stuff? Blood pressure?" "At our age, well, your age, it's important to stay on top of things. My age is fine, and my health is none of your concern, but I appreciate the interest." "Just looking out for you." His eyes had scanned my desk where I'd left paperwork from my doctor's office. "Must be tough, all those pills seniors have to manage." "I manage just fine." At the time, awkward small talk. Now, sitting in the dark, I wondered why he'd been so interested in my medical details, why he'd tried so hard to see those papers. Then there was the incident from a month ago. I'd come home early to find Kirsten, Francis' sister, walking away from my house. She'd seemed startled. "Kirsten, what are you doing here?" "Oh, Quentin, I wanted to visit Sarah's grave. Her birthday is coming up." "The cemetery's in Claremont. That's 20 minutes south." "Right, yes, I got turned around." She'd smiled without warmth. "I thought I'd stop by, see if you wanted to visit together, but you weren't home, so—" "You didn't knock?" "I did. No answer." Too quick, too defensive. "Anyway, I should go." She'd hurried to her car before I could ask anything else. I checked my security system later. No recorded doorbell, no motion sensor trips at the front door. She'd been somewhere on my property, but not at the entrance where she'd claimed to knock. The bourbon burned going down, but it didn't warm the cold forming in my gut. 2 months ago was worse. I'd been working from home, contracts and projections covering my study. Francis stopped by with Chinese takeout and that easy charm. We ate together, talked about sales, shared memories of Sarah. It was nice, companionable. I excused myself to use the bathroom, and when I returned, Francis was at my desk, his phone pointed at some papers. "Lose something?" I'd asked. He'd jumped slightly, pocketing the phone. "Just checking the time. This Kung Pao chicken is amazing, right?" But I'd seen the camera app still open on his screen for half a second, and the papers he'd been photographing, my estate documents, left out because I'd been reviewing them with my attorney that morning. "Francis, were you taking pictures of my papers?" "What?" "No, Quentin, come on." He'd laughed, but his neck had flushed red. "Why would I do that?" "That's what I'm asking." "I was literally just checking my phone." "You're paranoid." He'd stood up, suddenly eager to leave. "Look, I've got a call in 20 minutes. Thanks for lunch." Gone before I could press further. 3 incidents. 3 moments I dismissed as awkward, as misunderstandings, as coincidence. But at 2 a.m., alone with bourbon and racing thoughts, they didn't feel like coincidence. They felt like reconnaissance. like someone systematically gathering information about my health, my property, my estate. I pulled out my phone, scrolling until I found Leonard Wilson, my corporate attorney. Too late to call, but I composed an email. Leonard, need to review my will, specifically succession clauses and estate provisions. Available this week, some concerns have arisen regarding potential beneficiaries. Q. I hit send and sat back. Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe grief and loneliness were making me see shadows where none existed. Maybe Francis was just an ambitious son-in-law with poor boundaries. But 40 years in pharmaceuticals had taught me something crucial. When multiple symptoms appear together, you're not looking at coincidence. You're looking at a syndrome, a pattern, and the pattern I was seeing scared me. My phone buzzed. Despite the hour, Leonard had replied, "My office, 9 a.m. tomorrow. Come prepared to discuss everything. This sounds serious." "It might be nothing," I typed back. "In my experience, Quentin, when you say might be nothing, it's always something. See you at 9. I turned off the phone and sat in darkness, listening to my house settle around me. Tomorrow I'd talk to Leonard, maybe review security footage, probably confirm I was just a paranoid old man jumping at shadows. But tonight I couldn't shake the memory of Francis's eyes as he left my office, that cold, calculating look that promised consequences. My daughter used to tease me about worst-case scenario planning. "Dad," she'd say, "not everything is a hostile takeover. But sometimes, Sarah, it is. Sometimes the hostile takeover is already underway, and you just haven't recognized it yet. I'd built an empire by staying 3 steps ahead of the competition. Time to start applying those same instincts closer to home. Because if I was right, if my instincts were correct, then Francis hadn't given up on getting my company. He'd just changed strategies. And that final look in his eyes suggested his new strategy was far more dangerous than a simple argument about inheritance. I poured another finger of bourbon and stared at the dark screen of my computer. Monday morning, I'd sit down with Leonard and lay out everything. Every odd interaction, every suspicious moment, every instinct telling me something was wrong. And if Leonard thought I was crazy, well, I'd rather be a paranoid old man than a dead one. Saturday morning arrived with fog rolling in from the Pacific. I'd barely slept. Spent most of the night running scenarios. Leonard had confirmed our 9 a.m. meeting. "Bring everything." I was at my desk by 7 when Lisa Morgan, my secretary of 20 years, knocked. "You're here early. Everything okay after yesterday?" "Define okay." I managed a wry smile. Frances and I had words. I heard raised voices. She hesitated. "Quentin, if you need to tell me something." "Not yet, but thank you." At 8:45, Francis appeared in my doorway holding 2 cups from Coastal Brew, the artisanal coffee shop I'd mentioned liking months ago. "Morning, Quentin." His smile was sheepish, apologetic. Yesterday's fury had vanished, replaced by the charming son-in-law who'd courted my daughter 9 years ago. "Got a minute?" Every instinct screamed caution, but I gestured to the chair. "I have a meeting at 9. "This won't take long." He set 1 cup on my desk. "About yesterday, I was completely out of line. The stress, the anniversary of Sarah's passing coming up, I lost perspective. The mention of my daughter's name was calculated, but his delivery was flawless, eyes misting slightly, voice catching just enough to seem genuine. "We all have bad days, Francis." "No, it was more than that." He leaned forward, hands clasped. "I've been carrying this resentment, feeling like I haven't lived up to what Sarah would have wanted. She believed in me, and I feel like I'm failing her memory." If I hadn't spent 40 years watching people lie across conference tables, I might have believed him. But his words felt rehearsed, practiced in front of a mirror. "Sarah had faith in both of us," I said carefully. "Exactly. Which is why I brought a peace offering. Your favorite. Single-origin Ethiopian, light roast, oat milk." He remembered. That was Francis's gift, cataloging people's preferences. I'd watched him do it with clients for years. "That's thoughtful. I know words are cheap after yesterday." He picked up his own cup, took a sip. "But I mean it, Quentin. I want to do better. For Sarah's sake." We talked about work, about a new pharmacy contract, mundane business that felt surreal. Francis was animated, the consummate salesman pivoting after a blown pitch. I was reaching for the coffee when Lisa burst through the door. "Mr. Harrison, I'm so sorry." She was moving fast, her foot catching on the Persian rug. Papers flew as she stumbled forward, colliding with me hard enough that I nearly dropped the cup. "Lisa!" Frances jumped up. "Are you all right?" "I'm fine. I'm so clumsy." She was on her knees gathering papers, and as she reached past my leg, I felt her hand grip my ankle. Her voice dropped to barely a whisper. "Don't drink it. Trust me." The words were so quiet I almost missed them, but they hit like a hammer. "Let me help you," I said, kneeling beside her. Francis was checking his phone, oblivious. Lisa's eyes met mine for half a second. They were terrified. I stood, helping her up, my mind racing. "Sorry about that. I really need to watch where I'm going," she said loudly. "No harm done." 40 years of negotiations had taught me how to make decisions under pressure while appearing calm. "Francis, I just realized, I grabbed coffee at home. This'll get cold during my meeting." I picked up both cups. "Lisa, would you mind getting us fresh ones from the break room?" "Of course." She practically fled. Francis looked at me oddly. "Quentin, the coffee's fine." Humor an old man's quirks. I was already walking toward my kitchenette. "Besides, I want to show you something on my computer." I set both cups down, deliberately positioning them. Francis's Coastal Brew cup on the left, mine with the Harrison Pharmaceuticals logo on the right. "Let me pull this up." I moved to my computer. Francis followed. His phone buzzed. "Sorry, I need to take this. Client emergency." He stepped to the window, phone to his ear. I moved fast. Switched the cups. 3 seconds, maybe 4. Francis finished his call. Where were we? "Market analysis." I showed him meaningless data. We talked for 5 minutes. Then Lisa returned with 2 steaming mugs. "I'll take one to go," I said, grabbing a mug. "Don't want to be late." Francis nodded, reaching for what he thought was his original cup, the one with my company logo. "Thanks for the coffee earlier, and for the apology." "Of course." He raised the cup, smiled, took a long drink. I watched his face. Nothing changed. Then slowly his expression shifted. Confusion, then discomfort. "You okay?" "Yeah, He set down the cup, hand going to his stomach. "Feel a little off." "Something you ate?" "Maybe." Sweat was beading on his forehead. "Could I use your bathroom?" "Of course." He stood, swayed. His hand shot out to steady himself against my desk. "Francis?" "I'm fine, just dizzy." His breathing had changed, faster, shallower, color draining from his face. "Sit down." I was already reaching for my phone. "Lisa, call 911. "What? Why?" Francis looked genuinely confused. "Because something's very wrong, and I'd rather be safe than sorry." I kept my voice calm, clinical. "How do you feel?" Specifically. "Nauseous. Dizzy. My heart's racing." He looked at me with real fear. "Quentin, what's happening?" "That's what we're going to find out." Lisa appeared in the doorway. "Ambulance is 3 minutes out." Francis was gripping the desk, knuckles white. "I don't understand." "Neither do I," I said, and waited. The paramedics arrived in under 4 minutes. Professional, efficient, asking questions while Francis sat in my chair, looking increasingly panicked. His pulse was 130, blood pressure 160/95. "I'm fine," Francis protested weakly. "Probably just food poisoning." "Sir, with your symptoms, we'd rather have you checked out." The older paramedic, a no-nonsense woman, was already preparing the gurney. I stepped forward. "I'm Quentin Harrison. I own Harrison Pharmaceuticals. We manufacture cardiac medications. These symptoms could indicate several conditions. I'd strongly recommend a full toxicology panel." The paramedics exchanged glances. "What makes you think toxicology?" 40 years in pharmaceuticals teaches you to think about these things." Francis stared at me. "Toxicology? Quentin, what are you saying?" "I'm saying let's rule out every possibility." They loaded him onto the gurney. As they wheeled him out, he asked weakly, "Will you call my father and Kirsten?" "Of course," I lied. The moment the elevator closed, Detective Vernon Cooper stepped out of the second elevator. Mid-50s, built like he still hit the gym, with eyes that missed nothing. I'd met him once at a charity fundraiser. "Mr. Harrison, your secretary called dispatch. Said you'd requested police presence for a possible poisoning." "Lisa did that?" I turned to her. "You told me to call 911. I called the right 911. "Smart woman. Come into my office, detective. Lisa, join us." We settled in, Cooper in Francis' chair, Lisa on the sofa, me leaning against my desk. The coffee cups still sat in the kitchenette. "Start from the beginning," Cooper said. I explained yesterday's confrontation, Francis's appearance this morning with coffee, Lisa's warning, Cooper's pen scratched across paper. Ms. Morgan, what made you warn Mr. Harrison? Lisa's hands twisted in her lap. I came in early, around 6:30, lower garage. When I got to the elevator, I heard Francis on speakerphone. He didn't see me. There's a pillar blocking the view. What did you hear? A woman's voice. She asked if he had the coffee. He said yes, it was ready. Then she said, Lisa swallowed. She said, 20 minutes after he drinks it. That's what the nurse said. The digoxin won't show up right away. It'll look like his heart. The temperature in the room dropped. Digoxin? Cooper repeated. A cardiac glycoside, I said quietly. My company manufactures it. In therapeutic doses, it treats heart failure. In higher doses, extremely dangerous. In elderly patients, an overdose could easily be mistaken for a heart attack. Cooper's eyes sharpened. You're saying your son-in-law just attempted to murder you with your own product? I'm saying something's very wrong, and I'd like those cups tested immediately. Done. Cooper made a call. Within minutes, an evidence team was photographing, sealing, documenting everything. Mr. Harrison, why did you switch the cups? Because Lisa warned me, and 40 years in business taught me that when someone shows you who they are, believe them. I looked at Cooper directly. Yesterday, Francis demanded I sign over my company. Today, he brought specialty coffee and an Oscar-worthy performance. Lisa's warning made me reassess. If I was wrong, Francis drinks his own coffee. If I was right, he poisoned himself with his own weapon. Cooper almost smiled. That's either smart or lucky. I'll take either. Ms. Morgan, would you recognize the woman's voice? Lisa nodded. Kirsten, Francis's sister. She's been to office parties. I'd know her anywhere. Cooper made another note. Kirsten Davis. She's a nurse? At Mercy Hospital, I confirmed. Cardiac unit. Convenient. Cooper stood. Mr. Harrison, I'll be blunt. If you're correct, you just prevented your own murder. Francis Davis will be under police guard. We'll fast-track toxicology on both him and the coffee. I'll need you at the station later for a formal statement. What about Kirsten and Roland, Francis's father? One step at a time. Let's see what the tests show. Cooper headed for the door, then paused. Your instincts probably just saved your life. After he left, Lisa and I sat in silence. I'm sorry, she finally said. I should have come to you immediately, not waited. You did exactly right. If you'd told me beforehand, I might have confronted Francis directly. This way we have evidence. I moved to the window. The fog was burning off, revealing blue sky. Lisa, did Francis seem surprised when he got sick? Genuinely shocked. Good. That means he doesn't know yet. I turned back. How long have you worked for me? 20 years next month. In all that time, have I ever asked you to do something ethically questionable? Never. I'm not starting now. But I need you to trust me. There's more going on than just today. Francis, Kirsten, maybe Roland. They've been planning something, and I intend to find out exactly what. What do you need? For now, act normal. If the Davis family calls, you haven't heard anything beyond Francis felt ill and went to the hospital. Can you do that? Yes. Thank you. For everything, especially this morning. I liked Sarah. She deserved better than Francis. After she left, I pulled up my company's security system, the pharmaceutical storage area, camera feeds, access logs. If Francis stole digoxin from our inventory, there'd be a record. My phone buzzed. Leonard, heard about the incident. Are you all right? Still want to meet? I typed back, more than ever, but let's make it your office. Mine might be a crime scene soon. His response, on my way to collect you. Stay put. I looked at the coffee cups, now evidence bags. At my desk where Francis had sat sweating, confused. Drinking poison meant for me. At the fog clearing from the windows. 40 years building an empire. 3 years mourning a daughter. 1 night suspecting treachery. 1 moment this morning when everything changed. Francis wanted my company badly enough to kill for it. He'd get his day in court, just not the kind he'd planned. I pulled out my phone and started making a list. Evidence needed. Questions requiring answers. People to be contacted. Leonard taught me long ago, when someone declares war, you don't negotiate. You win. The paramedics worked with practiced efficiency, but I saw the shift when I mentioned toxicology. The older one, Maria, exchanged a glance with her partner. Mr. Harrison, what makes you suspect poisoning? I own Harrison Pharmaceuticals. 40 years teaches you to recognize symptom patterns. I gestured toward Francis on the gurney. Rapid onset, cardiac involvement, GI distress, cardiotoxic agent. Maria nodded. We'll inform the ER. They'll run a full panel. As they wheeled Francis out, he looked at me with genuine confusion. Quentin, I don't understand what's happening. Neither do I, Francis, but we will. The elevator doors closed. I turned to Lisa. Call Detective Cooper. Tell him possible attempted poisoning. Cooper arrived within 20 minutes. Sharp eyes, skeptical demeanor. Mr. Harrison, your secretary mentioned a poisoning incident. Come in, Detective. Lisa, join us. I laid it out chronologically. Friday's confrontation. This morning's coffee. Lisa's warning. The cup switch. Ms. Morgan, what prompted you to warn Mr. Harrison? Lisa's voice was steady despite her pallor. I arrived at 6:30, parked in the lower garage. At the elevator, I heard Francis on speakerphone. A woman's voice asked if he'd taken care of the coffee. He said yes. He'd picked it up from Coastal Brew. She took a breath. Then she said, 20 minutes after he drinks it. That's what the nurse said. The digoxin won't show up on preliminary screens. It'll look like his heart gave out. Cooper's pen stopped. Digoxin. That's cardiac medication. My company manufactures it, I said quietly. Therapeutic doses help heart failure. Excessive doses are lethal. In elderly patients, overdose presents identically to natural cardiac arrest. Did Francis see you, Ms. Morgan? No. There's a concrete pillar. I stayed hidden. Cooper turned to me. You switched the cups? When his phone rang, he turned away. 3 seconds. He drank from what he thought was my cup, the poisoned one. He poisoned himself with his own weapon. Cooper's expression stayed neutral, but I caught something. Respect, maybe. That's brilliant or lucky. I'll take either. Miss Morgan, would you recognize the woman's voice? Absolutely. Kirsten Davis, Francis's sister. Cardiac nurse at Mercy Hospital. I'd know her anywhere. Cooper made notes. A cardiac nurse who knows digoxin dosing. Convenient. He pulled out his phone, called for an evidence team. While he coordinated, I pulled up our security system. Pharmaceutical storage, multiple cameras, digital timestamps. If Francis stole digoxin, there'd be a record. Detective, look at this. Cooper leaned over as I navigated. June 10th, 7:15 p.m. Francis entering the pharmaceutical storage room with his VP access card when the facility should have been empty. That's your digoxin storage? Yes. Only authorized personnel have access. Francis isn't one. But he had a key. A copy of someone's key, I fast-forwarded. 4 minutes inside. Leaves with his pocket bulging. Cooper's jaw tightened. I'll need copies. Within the hour. The evidence team arrived, photographing everything, bagging the cups with meticulous care. One technician held up Francis's cup. This one has lipstick traces. This one doesn't. The clean one is poisoned, I explained. Francis brought it for me. After I swapped them, he drank from the poisoned cup. We'll run gas chromatography mass spectrometry. If there's digoxin, we'll find it. How long? 4 to 6 hours. After they left, Cooper turned to me. Did you add anything to either cup? No. You can test my hands, clothing, whatever you need. We will, he paused. Your son-in-law just tried to murder you with your own product, using knowledge from his sister, the cardiac nurse. Why? I thought about Friday, Francis's desperation, that cold calculation. Money, detective. My will passes the company to Francis, only if I'm incapacitated or dead. I'm neither. But Francis has been making large cash withdrawals. His performance has declined. I've been considering firing him. That would eliminate him from your will? Completely. Employment termination triggers automatic exclusion. I met his eyes. He knew that, which means he had a deadline. Cooper nodded. We'll need formal statements. I'll also interview Francis at the hospital. One more thing, I showed him my text thread with Leonard. I was planning to meet my lawyer this morning to discuss concerns about Francis before the coffee incident. What concerns? Suspicious behavior, financial irregularities, questions about my health. Nothing provable, but enough to make me cautious. Cooper photographed the texts. Cautious enough to save your life? He headed for the door, stopped. Mr. Harrison? 20 years of detective work, I've never seen someone poison themselves with their own murder weapon. Your quick thinking turned attempted murder into confession. After he left, I sat alone. Afternoon sun streamed through windows. My hands steady, breathing calm. But inside, something cold and hard was forming. Francis hadn't just tried to kill me. He'd planned it, calculated the dose, recruited his sister, probably his father too. They'd all decided I was expendable, an old man whose time was up. I looked at my reflection. 67 years old. Built this company from nothing, and now this. I called Leonard. We need to meet. Tonight. More than just updating my will. How much more? Everything, Leonard. Every legal option. Every tool. Every way to ensure that when this is done, Francis and his family understand exactly who they tried to destroy. Pause. Then, I'll clear my evening. My office? 7. I hung up and pulled up Francis's employment file. Access logs. Expense reports. 8 years of data about to be examined. They'd made their move. Now it was my turn. Cooper called at 4:47 p.m. Toxicology's back. Francis has digoxin at 4.8 nanograms per milliliter. Therapeutic range is 0.5 to 2.0, more than double toxic threshold. Lethal for my age? Absolutely. For a 185-pound man in his late 60s, that would cause fatal cardiac arrhythmia within 30 to 40 minutes. Cold spread through me. They weren't taking chances. No. Coffee tested positive, too. Premeditated murder. I'm placing Francis under guard. Cooper paused. We searched his residence. Found handwritten notes on your schedule. Copies of your medical records. Emails between Francis, Kirsten, and Roland about financial freedom after July. And a life insurance policy. On you, $5 million. Perfect clarity. Contestability period expires next month, July 15th. Francis needed you dead before mid-July. Firing him would have nullified everything. He was out of time. I checked my calendar. Performance review. June 20th. I'd been planning to fire him. He knew I was about to let him go. After hanging up, I stared at my screen. $5 million insurance. $28 million company. $33 million reasons. Soft knock. Lisa entered. Douglas Miller from IT needs to speak urgently. Douglas looked uncomfortable. 52. Balding. 15 years with us. Come in. He set his laptop down, pulling up login records. For 2 weeks, Francis accessed the network between 2 and 4 a.m. Every night. Accessing what? Your estate documents, wills, succession agreements, employment contracts. He scrolled through logs. Also pharmaceutical inventory, controlled substances. When did it start? May 28th. Right after I mentioned reorganizing executives. Douglas, who knew about personnel changes? Executive meeting, May 24th. You, CFO, COO, and Francis. Francis attended that meeting, started after-hours research. Learned firing meant losing everything. Stole digoxin June 10th. Recruited Kirsten for dosing. I need copies of those logs. Already done. He handed me a USB drive. Everything's here. Also his email archives. References to the plan, timeline, after everything's settled. He used personal email through our servers. I took the drive. Such a small thing containing such damning evidence. Douglas, you just gave me premeditation proof. Thank you. After he left, I called Leonard. Come to my office. I have a lot to show you. Leonard arrived at 6, briefcase in hand. You sounded serious. Francis tried to kill me with poisoned coffee. Police confirmed digoxin. He's under guard. Leonard set down his briefcase. Start from the beginning. I walked him through everything. Friday's confrontation, this morning, Lisa's warning, cup switch, investigation, insurance policy, computer access. Leonard made rapid notes. This is conspiracy, insurance fraud, theft, corporate espionage. If Kirsten provided dosing, she's accessory. If Roland knew, he's in conspiracy. Can we prove Roland knew? The emails might. Leonard looked up. What do you want? Justice, revenge, protection? All three. Full prosecution. Company protected. And I want them to understand trying to kill me was their worst decision. Leonard nodded. Then here's what we do. He laid out strategy. Police cooperation. Terminate Francis. Triggering inheritance exclusion. Challenge insurance for fraud. Civil lawsuit for damages and espionage. Forensic audit of 8 years. If he's been stealing and given gambling debts, he has. We'll find it, Leonard said. Every dollar becomes another charge. How long? Best case, 15 years. Realistic, 25 to 30. California doesn't forgive premeditated poisoning. Francis in prison quarter century. Kirsten losing her license. Roland watching family crumble. Do it. All of it. Leonard packed notes. Change your will immediately. Remove all Francis references. New documents. Monday. My estate? I have no other family. We'll discuss, but priority is ensuring they get nothing. After Leonard left, I sat as evening faded. Somewhere Francis was under guard, understanding his plan failed. Somewhere Kirsten and Roland were figuring their next move. They wouldn't find one. I pulled up security footage, watching Francis steal poison he thought would make him rich. He'd been so sure, so confident, certain an old man wouldn't see it coming. But 40 years building from nothing teaches survival. You don't navigate pharmaceuticals by being blind or weak. You survive by being patient, watching, waiting for your moment. Francis gave me mine. I saved footage, backed it up 3 places, sent copies to Cooper and Leonard. Then I called my CFO. Linda, terminate Francis Davis immediately. Gross misconduct, theft, criminal activity. I'll send documentation. Pull his access, change passwords, remove his belongings. Done by Monday. 1 call. 8 years ended. Tomorrow, insurance challenge. Next week, lawsuit. Month's end, trial. They wanted to destroy me. Instead, I'd dismantle them piece by piece. And unlike them, I wouldn't lose sleep. Cooper called Tuesday morning, June 18th. Francis is stable. They're discharging him to county custody. His lawyer filed motions claiming accidental cup confusion. Accidental? They're saying Francis innocently picked up the wrong cup, that you're exploiting a tragic mistake to eliminate him from your will. I laughed without humor. What about the search warrant evidence? His attorney claims the notes were for planning family visits. Medical records because he was concerned about your health. Emails about financial freedom were just family discussing their futures. They have answers for everything. They think they do, but they don't know about Lisa's testimony or Douglas's network access records. We're building a timeline that destroys their accident theory. My office door opened without a knock. Kirsten Davis stood in the doorway, face hard and calculating. We need to talk, Quentin. My secretary should have announced you. I told her it was family business. She closed the door, uninvited. This has gotten out of hand. Francis made a mistake, but you're destroying him. A mistake? Is that what we're calling attempted murder? Don't be dramatic. She moved closer. You switched those cups. Everyone knows it. Francis brought you coffee as a peace offering, and you saw an opportunity to eliminate him. Very convenient. I studied her. Cardiac nurse. Medication management specialist. She'd have known exactly what dose would kill me. You're threatening me in my own office? I'm offering you a way out. Her smile was cold. Drop the charges. We'll forget this misunderstanding. Francis will resign. We'll all move on. And if I don't? Then we tell everyone the truth. That you deliberately switched cups because you wanted Francis gone. That you're a bitter old man who can't stand that your daughter's husband might deserve something you built. You've thought this through. We're family, Quentin. We take care of our own. Family. I pulled up an email on my computer. Is that why you sent Francis detailed dosing information about cardiac glycosides on June 9th? Police subpoenaed your email records this morning. Her face went pale. You're bluffing. Am I? You used your hospital email account. Every message is logged, including the one where you calculated lethal doses based on my weight and age. Information Francis provided for my medical records. I was helping him understand his medication. Francis has a heart condition. Francis doesn't have a heart condition. His last physical was clean. I have his employment medical records right here. I tapped the folder. Try again. Her jaw tightened. You're making a mistake. My father won't let you destroy this family. Roland Davis, retired military, called me yesterday, suggested I think carefully about my choices. Was that your idea or his? You can't prove anything. The DA thinks we can prove quite a lot. Conspiracy to commit murder carries 25 years in California. Add in your nursing license violation, providing lethal dosing information, and you're looking at professional ruin even if you avoid prison. She stood abruptly. You'll regret this. My father knows people. Important people. This isn't over. You're right. It's not over. But when it is, all three of you will understand something. I built this company by being smarter than people who underestimated me. You should have done your research. After she left, I called Leonard. They made their first move. Kirsten showed up with threats. Did she threaten you explicitly? Implied consequences if I don't drop charges. Mentioned her father's important connections. I recorded it. My office has audio surveillance. Perfect. That's witness intimidation. I'll have Cooper pick her up this afternoon. That evening, my phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Harrison? The voice was rough, authoritative, military bearing. Roland Davis. Time we spoke man to man. I don't have anything to say to you. Then listen. My son made a mistake, but family forgives family. Drop this vendetta, and we'll make it worth your while. Francis will disappear from your life. You'll never hear from us again. And if I don't, then you'll find out what it's like to fight people with nothing left to lose. His voice hardened. You're alone, Quentin. No wife, no daughter, no grandchildren. You think that company will keep you warm at night? Think those lawyers will visit you when you're dying? The words hit harder than I wanted to admit, but I kept steady. Your son tried to murder me for money. Your daughter helped him plan it. And you're calling to threaten me? Tell me, Roland, were you always this proud of your children's accomplishments? Or is attempted murder a new milestone? Silence. Then, you just made the biggest mistake of your life. No, the biggest mistake was yours. You raised a son who thought killing his father-in-law was easier than earning his own success. Now you're all going to pay for it. I hung up and immediately called Cooper. Roland Davis just threatened me. I recorded it. They're not helping themselves, are they? No, they're desperate, which makes them dangerous. Agreed. I'm putting a patrol car on your street tonight. Vary your routine. Different routes to work, different times. Until we have them all in custody, assume they're capable of anything. After Cooper hung up, I sat in my office. San Diego's city lights spreading below. The Davis family was circling, trying to find weakness, trying to make me afraid. But I wasn't afraid. I was angry. And anger, properly channeled, was far more useful than fear. I started composing an email to Leonard. Prepare for aggressive defense. They'll claim I poisoned Francis. We need Dr. Chang's testimony locked down, and forensic analysis proving I never touched the poison cup. Also, subpoena Francis's bank records. I want to know exactly how bad his gambling debts were. They wanted war. They'd get it. But they'd forgotten one crucial thing. I'd been fighting corporate battles since before Francis was born, and I'd never lost. The next 2 weeks became methodical destruction. Every morning I met with Leonard and reviewed evidence. Every afternoon Cooper brought updates. Every evening I built the case that would bury the Davis family. June 19th. Leonard secured Francis's financial records. Gambling debts. $340,000 owed to offshore betting sites. Payment demanded by July 15th. They were threatening exposure to his creditors, Leonard explained. Francis was desperate. This wasn't opportunistic. It was survival. June 22nd. Dr. Terry Chang, my toxicologist colleague of 20 years, finished his analysis. He arrived carrying a thick folder. Quentin, this is slam dunk testimony. He spread photos across my desk. The digoxin concentration in the poison cup was 2.4 milligrams per 8 ounces, 10 times therapeutic dose. For a man your age and weight, this would cause ventricular fibrillation within 40 minutes. Death would follow quickly. And Francis's blood levels. Consistent with ingesting approximately 75% of that cup. He got a near-lethal dose himself. Terry paused. Here's the critical part. The digoxin was pharmaceutical grade, identical to your company's, and the concentration suggests it was added within 2 hours of Francis arriving at your office. Meaning? Meaning you couldn't have poisoned it. You'd need concentrated digoxin solution, precise dosing equipment, time to dissolve it properly. The coffee shop is 12 minutes from your office. The time frame doesn't support their theory. I felt something tighten my chest loosen. Put that in your report. June 24th. Cooper traced Francis's movements on June 10th, the day he stole the digoxin. Security footage showed him entering pharmaceutical storage at 7:13 p.m., exiting at 7:17 p.m. Inventory records showed exactly 50 milliliters of concentrated digoxin missing, enough for multiple lethal doses. He took enough to try again if the first attempt failed, Cooper noted grimly. June 27th. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Francis's co-worker, sales associate Michelle Torres, came forward. She'd been at the office late on June 15th. I saw Francis in the break room, she told Cooper, with me listening via speakerphone. He was on his phone, pacing. I heard him say, "Tomorrow morning, Coastal Brew at 8:30. I'll have everything ready." He looked nervous. "Did you hear anything else?" "Just," he said, "once it's done, we're clear. The old man won't know what hit him." I thought he meant some business deal. But after what happened, Cooper added Michelle to the witness list. July 1st, Leonard obtained the smoking gun, a burner phone purchased by Roland Davis on May 20th. Phone records showed multiple calls to both Francis and Kirsten in the weeks before the poisoning. Text fragments recovered included, "Have you sourced it?" And "Remember, timing is everything, and after the 15th, creditors will come." Roland wasn't just supporting his son, Leonard said. He was coordinating. The DA is adding conspiracy charges for all three. July 3rd, I met with Leonard and Cooper at the DA's office. Prosecutor Janet Martinez laid out the case. "We have motive, $340,000 in gambling debts, plus $33 million inheritance. We have means, stolen pharmaceutical-grade digoxin and dosing expertise from a cardiac nurse. We have opportunity, Francis' access to you and the company. And we have intent, phone records, emails, after-hours computer access." "Will it hold up?" I asked. "Mr. Harrison, this is one of the strongest attempted murder cases I've seen in 15 years. The defense will try to flip it, claim you switched cups to frame Francis. But the physical evidence doesn't support that. The timeline doesn't support it. And their own communications prove premeditation." She paused. "There is one thing. Francis's attorney will argue you had motive to eliminate him from your will. They'll paint you as vengeful, manipulative. They'll say you saw an opportunity and took it. Let them. I have 40 years of business records showing I've never acted dishonestly. I have employees who'll testify to my character. And I have the simple fact that if I wanted Francis out of my life, I could have just fired him and changed my will. I didn't need to poison him." Martinez smiled. "That's exactly what I'll say in my opening statement." Back in my office that evening, I compiled everything into a master timeline. 42 separate pieces of evidence, from Francis's first suspicious behavior in April to his arrest. Each piece connected like gears in a clock. Lisa knocked. "Mr. Harrison, it's almost 9. You should go home." "Soon. Just finishing this." She hesitated. "Can I ask you something? Do you think they really would have killed you? Actually gone through with it?" I looked at the evidence spread across my desk. Stolen digoxin, calculated dosage, coordinated planning, deadline pressure from gambling debts. Yes, they would have. They needed me dead, and they were running out of time. That makes people capable of terrible things. "I'm sorry you have to go through this." "Don't be." I looked up. They made their choice. Now they get to live with consequences. After she left, I sat alone with my coffee, regular, safe coffee, and thought about the trial ahead. The Davis family would fight. They'd attack my character, question my motives, try to make me the villain. But I had something they didn't: truth, patience, and the kind of cold, methodical planning that came from 4 decades of building something from nothing. Francis had gambled that an old man would be easy prey. That desperation would make him sloppy. That greed could substitute for intelligence. He'd been wrong on every count, and in 3 weeks, when formal charges were filed, he'd learn exactly how wrong. I pulled up the security footage one last time, watched Francis steal the poison, watched him bring poisoned coffee to my office with that fake smile. "You should have done your homework," I said to the screen. "You should have known who you were trying to kill." Tomorrow, the real work would begin. But tonight, I allowed myself a moment of grim satisfaction. They'd wanted to destroy me. Instead, I was about to dismantle them, piece by careful piece. And unlike them, I'd sleep soundly doing it. July 8th arrived with the weight of inevitability. The San Diego District Attorney's Office filed formal charges against all 3 Davis family members. I watched the news in Leonard's office. Breaking news. Pharmaceutical executive Francis Davis charged with attempted murder using poison. Leonard muted it. The DA is going for maximum sentences. Janet Martinez is prosecuting personally. She doesn't lose often. Bail hearings? This afternoon? They're asking $2 million for Francis, $500,000 for Kirsten, $300,000 for Roland. They can't afford that. Exactly? They'll stay in custody through trial. The bail hearing was brief and brutal. Francis looked haggard, 20 pounds lighter than a month ago. Kirsten's face was stone. Roland's military bearing had crumbled into defeated slouching. Judge Patricia Morrison reviewed the evidence without emotion. Given the premeditated nature, use of poison, and flight risk, bail is set at $2 million for Francis Davis, $500,000 for Kirsten Davis, $300,000 for Roland Davis. Next hearing, July 22nd. The gavel struck. Francis's head dropped. Kirsten closed her eyes. Roland stared at me across the courtroom. I met his gaze without flinching. July 22nd. Preliminary hearing. This was where prosecution proved enough evidence existed for trial. I was the star witness. Janet Martinez was sharp, methodical. Mr. Harrison described the events of June 16th. I walked through it step by step. Coffee, Lisa's warning, cup switch, Francis's symptoms. Every detail precise, clinical. Francis's attorney, Robert Kellerman, cross-examined aggressively. Isn't it true you had motive to eliminate Francis from your will? You saw an opportunity and poisoned him to frame him. Mr. Kellerman, I own a pharmaceutical company. If I wanted Francis gone, I could have simply fired him and changed my will. I didn't need poison or elaborate schemes. Just paperwork. But you switched the cups. After my secretary warned me. Yes, wouldn't you? Murmurs in the courtroom. Kellerman pressed harder. How convenient, you knew exactly what to do. Almost like you'd planned it. I've spent 40 years in pharmaceuticals. When my secretary warns about poisoned coffee, I take it seriously, especially when my son-in-law has exhibited suspicious behavior for months. What suspicious behavior? I detailed everything, the health questions, Kirsten's unexplained presence at my house, Francis photographing documents, Douglas's report of late-night computer access, each piece built on the last. Then Terry Chain took the stand. My colleague, my friend for 20 years, delivered testimony that destroyed Kellerman's theory. The digoxin concentration was 2.4 milligrams per 8 ounces, Terry explained, using a chart. This requires pharmaceutical-grade solution, precise equipment, and 15 to 20 minutes to dissolve without visible residue. Could Mr. Harrison have poisoned the coffee in his office? Impossible. Francis arrived at 8:47 a.m. The secretary entered at 8:52 a.m. That's 5 minutes. Dissolution alone takes longer. Additionally, Mr. Harrison doesn't keep concentrated solution in his office. Where is it kept? Pharmaceutical storage. Security footage shows Francis entering June 10th and removing approximately 50 milliliters, enough for multiple lethal doses. Could someone else have poisoned the coffee? Timeline doesn't support that. Francis purchased coffee at Coastal Brew at 8:32 a.m., arrived 15 minutes later. Poison was added during that window. Only Francis had access to both coffee and digoxin. More witnesses followed. Michelle Torres described Francis's nervous phone call about having everything ready. Lisa recounted the overheard conversation about digoxin not being detected immediately. Douglas explained the suspicious late-night network access. Cooper presented evidence from Francis's home, my schedule, my medical records, emails about financial freedom after July. By day's end, Kellerman looked like a man watching his case collapse. Judge Morrison's ruling was swift. The prosecution has demonstrated substantial evidence. All defendants will stand trial. Trial date, August 5th. Francis's face went white. Kirsten's stone expression cracked, fear flashing across her features. Roland sat motionless, staring at nothing. As they were led away, Francis looked at me with desperate confusion, like he couldn't understand how his perfect plan had failed so completely. I didn't smile, didn't react, just watched them go. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Mr. Harrison, how do you feel about today's outcome? Justice is moving forward. That's all that matters. Do you think they'll be convicted? The truth will come out. 3 people conspired to murder me for money they hadn't earned. The jury will decide what happens next. Any message for the Davis family? I paused, thinking about everything they'd put me through. The fear, the betrayal, the cold calculation behind their plan. Just this, I said quietly. They gambled everything on the assumption that an old man would be easy prey. They were wrong. Now they'll spend years thinking about that mistake. That evening, I sat in my office with Leonard. We didn't celebrate. We just sat with the weight of what was coming. 2 weeks until trial, Leonard said. They might offer a plea deal. Will Martinez accept? Depends on what they offer. But I doubt it. She's got them cold, Quentin. This case is a prosecutor's dream. And if they don't plead, then we go to trial, put all this in front of a jury, and let 12 people decide whether the Davis family tried to kill you for $33 million. I looked out at the city lights of San Diego spreading below. Somewhere out there, Francis, Kirsten, and Roland sat in cells, understanding, finally, that they'd misjudged everything. Their greed had blinded them. Their desperation made them sloppy. Their arrogance convinced them I wouldn't fight back. But I'd spent 40 years building something from nothing. I knew how to fight, how to be patient, how to win. The trial was just a formality now. The real battle was over. They'd lost the moment they decided I was disposable. August 15th, verdict day. The jury had deliberated for 6 hours. Leonard said that was actually a long time for such a clear-cut case, but it felt like 6 years sitting in that courtroom, waiting. Francis, Kirsten, and Roland sat at the defense table, 3 separate attorneys flanking them. Francis's hands were clasped so tight, his knuckles were white. Kirsten stared straight ahead, her face carefully blank. Roland's shoulders sagged under the weight of what was coming. Has the jury reached a verdict? Judge Morrison asked. We have, Your Honor. The foreman stood, a middle-aged woman who'd been taking notes throughout the trial. My heart was steady. I'd done everything I could. Now it was in their hands. In the case of the people versus Francis Davis, on the charge of attempted murder in the first degree, we find the defendant guilty. Francis's head dropped to his chest. His attorney put a hand on his shoulder, but Francis shook it off. On the charge of conspiracy to commit murder, we find the defendant guilty. In the case of the people versus Kirsten Davis, on the charge of accessory to attempted murder, we find the defendant guilty. Kirsten's blank expression finally cracked, her eyes closed, tears sliding down her cheeks. Silent, defeated tears. In the case of the people versus Roland Davis, on the charge of obstruction of justice, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of witness intimidation, we find the defendant guilty. Roland didn't move, didn't react, just sat there like a statue of a broken man. Judge Morrison scheduled sentencing for August 20th. 5 days to wait. 5 days for them to understand their futures had just been erased. The sentencing hearing was shorter than I expected. Martinez argued for maximum sentences. The defense attorneys pleaded for leniency. Francis's lawyer claimed he'd been under extreme financial pressure, that he'd made a terrible mistake. Kirsten's attorney said she'd been manipulated by her brother. Roland's attorney pointed to his military service, his previously clean record. Judge Morrison wasn't impressed. Francis Davis, you are sentenced to 25 years in state prison without possibility of parole. Kirsten Davis, 8 years in state prison. Roland Davis, 3 years in state prison. You will report to the Department of Corrections within 48 hours. The gavel struck. Final. Irrevocable. Francis's face crumpled. He started to cry, loud, ugly sobs that echoed through the courtroom. Kirsten sat frozen, staring at nothing. Roland closed his eyes slowly, like he was surrendering to something he'd known was inevitable. August 28th. The final paperwork was done. I'd signed a new will, removing all references to Francis and his family. Leonard had filed it with the court. There was no going back now. But the DA's office called. They were transporting all 3 defendants to state prison that afternoon. Did I want to attend? I did. The courthouse had a special holding area where prisoners were processed before transport. I stood in the hallway with Leonard and Cooper as Francis, Kirsten, and Roland were brought through in chains. They saw me. Francis stopped walking, forcing the guards to halt. For a long moment, we just looked at each other. He opened his mouth to speak, maybe to apologize, maybe to curse me. I'd never know, because I spoke first. I looked at all three of them, Francis, Kirsten, Roland, and said quietly, without emotion, "You forgot I built this company for 40 years. You thought I wouldn't notice poison in my own product?" The words hit like physical blows. Francis's face twisted with sudden understanding, the full weight of his miscalculation finally landing. Kirsten's jaw clenched. Roland's eyes closed as if he could block out the truth. I turned and walked away. Didn't look back. Didn't need to. Behind me, I heard Francis start sobbing again, heard the guards moving them forward, heard the heavy doors clang shut. That evening, I sat in my office, alone. The city lights of San Diego spread out below me like scattered diamonds. On my desk sat a single photo, my daughter taken a year before the cancer diagnosis. She was smiling, laughing at something I'd said, happy. I picked up the frame, studying her face. She'd been everything to me, and Francis had been her choice. I'd kept him in my life, in my company, out of loyalty to her memory, and he'd tried to kill me for it. "I'm sorry, Sarah," I said to the photo. "I wish things had been different. I wish you'd married someone worthy of you." But she hadn't, and now her husband was going to prison for 25 years, her former best friend for 8, her father-in-law for 3. Justice had been served. The law had worked. The guilty were being punished. So why did I feel so empty? I poured myself a whiskey, the good stuff, from the bottle I saved for special occasions. Though special felt like the wrong word. Final, maybe. Complete. I raised the glass to Sarah's photo. "To justice," I said quietly, "and to the price of winning." The whiskey burned going down. Outside my window, the city moved on, indifferent to the drama that had consumed the last 2 months of my life. People were going home to families, to children, to futures filled with possibility. I had a company. I had money. I had the satisfaction of seeing justice done. But I was 67 years old, sitting alone in an office, drinking to a photograph of my dead daughter, knowing that the last connection to her, however poisonous, was now locked away for decades. Victory. Complete and total victory. And the loneliest feeling I'd ever known. I finished the whiskey, set down the glass, and allowed myself one moment of bitter reflection. Then I turned off the lights, locked my office, and walked to the elevator. Tomorrow, the company would continue. Life would go on. I'd find new executives, build new relationships, maybe even leave a better legacy than I'd planned. But tonight, I let myself feel the cost of the war I'd won. Some victories aren't celebrated. They're survived. And I'd survived. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.